do, like even their Quran mentions everything about Christ and so little about Muhammad.
Exactly.
So I'm like, why do you guys like put so much emphasis on this?
Really?
Yeah, like even the Mary. Okay, like they said, like she's in heaven, and they talk about, like she's the most honored woman amongst all the women, and it talks about, Muhammad's mother that she's rotting in hell.
Really?
That's in the Quran. It's not something that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like, why do you believe? Why do you want to believe some dude that came 500 years after Christ, but you don't want to believe something that it's like the accounts of people that not only saw him, live with him, saw his miracles, saw him being resurrected from the dead, and it is within the 60-year span of Jesus's ascending to heaven.
Exactly. See, but I guess when I was having that conversation with the guy on the campus, it was one of those things where, like, in the Bible, there were two people. I want to say it was Elijah, and then I forget who the other person was, that didn't necessarily die in the traditional sense. They were taken up to heaven, from earth. But they said that they was like,
They walked, and then all of a sudden
exactly,
There was no physical death.
Exactly.
Exactly. They were raptured.
So they say that, in the end times, those two individuals are going to be, two of the angels, essentially, that come back and are, assisting with the judgment, so on and so forth. It's like, oh, that's actually dope,
That's crazy. I never heard of that.
Yeah, but then you hear about that, like, in the Muslim faith as well. And it's like,
Really?
Yeah, we have a lot of similar beliefs. It's just like Christianity and, Judaism.
Yeah.
Where they just look at the Old Testament.
The Old Testament is like, yeah.
Torah, that's what it is. It's the Old Testament.
Yeah,
and then he just stops.
Yeah, exactly. So, where we think of, Jesus Christ as the Lord and Savior, then, okay, a prophet. So all these other religions are saying Jesus was the prophet, and then, we, Lord and Savior.
Yeah. Because they still, even the Jewish people, it's not that they don't believe in the Messiah, but they're waiting for him.
Exactly.
So it's not like everything that, Isaiah was prophesying, Daniel, David, all of them, they still are waiting. They think that he hasn't come yet.
Wow.
And I feel like it just goes back to show you in our minds, like sometimes, what we create. It's like that false hope, or we think that we make it fit to our lifestyle.
Man.
Because it's all out there. I don't know if you've seen like these videos when they were going around asking Jewish people about, okay, well, who's the Messiah, this and that, and they're like, well, he's gonna come from Bethlehem. Everything like exactly what happened. And Jesus, like, exactly.
But they don't believe that it's
and
Jesus.
then but then like the dude is like showing them like all the prophecies that he actually fulfilled, like over 300 prophecies about him that he actually fulfilled. And it's like such an eye-opener. It's kind of like, in my country, like Romania, the Orthodox people, they don't really read the Bible. The priest is like the holy thing. So whatever the priest tells them, that's what they believe. So I don't know, I wouldn't want to say it like that's the same kind of scenario for them, but I feel like a lot of the Jewish priests or whatever, it's like that's what they believe.
Exactly.
They don't want to like go outside of that or challenge that or anything like that, or actually pick up for themselves and like actually read, because it's like when the guy who introduced him, they're like, oh, we never thought that. Like, we never heard that, or this and that. And it's like, well, how can you not?
Yeah. I could imagine it would be the same thing as in, Islam, where it would be like, the imams are the people that digest in the Quran, and then, now they're coming back and telling, their side of their interpretation or whatever. And it's like, well, you're too uneducated to actually understand what's going on. It's like, well, why does it say this? Uneducated. Yeah, you don't understand.
Exactly.
But why don't they read the Bible or their text?
Just because it's like they believe that, he's God sent.
The priest would be his
exactly. God. Like, he's the most holy. He can't do wrong, which that's one of the biggest absurdity ever.
Right, because at the end of the day, you're still a man You're still
course.
made of flesh and bone and like everything
But they don't
else.
see it like that.
Exactly.
Wow.
They don't see it like that. And then it's like when you actually present the Bible to them, and it's like, well, here, this is what it says. Like, stop praying to the saints because nobody else is going to hear you except the relationship you have through Jesus Christ. That's the direct path.
I mean, you think about it too. In the Old Testament, that you did have like the Moses or whoever that was delivering the word to the
Yeah.
people. You know, so they didn't have to go out and seek it on their own. They were receiving it already.
Correct.
Mm.
Exactly.
So that's that tradition almost probably just.
Just trickled
It's like,
down.
yeah, it's kind of like how back in the day how we would pass down history through stories,
Yeah.
right? And I think that's you said it best earlier, right when we started recording. With the best stories have the best character development, and I feel like that's. And you said this at a very very early episode, before we got all this fancy equipment, when we were still doing like cheap like little lavalier mics that were getting all messed up, and people are like,
With the
I can't
raccoon tail.
with the raccoon. Yeah, they're like, I can't understand what you're saying. I'm like, yeah, just get past the static. Trust me, it's good. It's a good episode. Just get past
You
the
won't
static.
understand.
But you said something where along the lines that Christianity is the only religion that calls people to change, that doesn't accept you for who you are right. I- uh, not that doesn't accept you for who you are, but it's calling you to be better, to actually change.
Absolutely.
I feel like it accepts you, but it won't allow you to remain the same.
That's the exact perfect. That's perfectly said. Yeah, it accepts you, but it won't allow you to remain the same.
Exactly.
And I think that's so interesting because isn't that kind of the point in whatever religious belief someone who may be listening or watching falls into? But I feel like it goes like this. Personal development is kind of the baseline of everything. You read books, you kind of learn, you start to grow, and it's like this personal development, and then eventually you hit a ceiling. Once you hit that ceiling is when you start to explore faith. I believe.
Yeah.
Because at one point you're like, I can read all the books and go to all the conferences and do all the things and cool, but is that it? And then you start to explore faith. So it's almost like this level where it's beyond my own understanding that it's going to cause me to be better. So if your faith or your belief is not causing you to change at the highest level, if not the best level, what's the point?
Exactly.
In my mind, I don't know.
Exactly.
Did you hit record on them?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I did.
I was like,
Yeah,
I don't want you to like
we've been
get
having
into it.
No,
when
we got some
okay,
good
we didn't record.
content. Dude, right when I came back from the bathroom, I already hit record on those bad boys. I hit record on this.
Yeah.
Let's
Man.
go.
Let's see.
But I think that's such a great start to today's topic. Is how are we going to reach men who don't look like us, who don't sound like us,
Yeah.
and then who don't believe like us? I think what we're having today is a lost art, conversation. Because I feel like everyone is so sensitive nowadays that when you have a conversation with them and it challenges their belief or this piece of their identity that maybe they're insecure about, it leads into argument. So instead of having something like educational and actually a positive exchange, it becomes into just argument and just you don't get anywhere. Neither point is really made.
Because we tend to look at what makes the man on the outside, and let alone, if you start looking on the inside, you find out that we're not that far apart.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Absolutely.
That society shows you, well, if you have a different skin color, did they portray you and,
Yeah.
Well, speaking of skin color, I think it's kind of funny. We start from the lightest tone and then the medium. You want your light tone, your medium roast, your dark roast. What you?
But it's like, you look at it. You got a beard, you got this, you got that. Well, you got to watch out because he might be this, he might be that. And it's like, man, like some of the most genuine, decent people that you actually have a conversation with. And it's like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like,
Covered in tattoo.
yeah, exactly. And it's like, dude, the dude's a freaking sweetheart.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But you will not approach it because society created that system to be like, nope, you got to look at him from the outside.
Exactly.
And that will keep you knowing the man from the inside.
It's a societal problem.
Yeah.
You know, the society dictates how we go about seeing each other. And of course, we always have to be like one step above somebody else. So, you know, the people that were born in the United States are better than the immigrant that comes in. It's like, oh, all these immigrants are taking our jobs. Dude, nobody wants those jobs that most of the immigrants are taking. You know,
That's
I don't even see people cutting their own grass anymore. You know,
Yeah.
it's predominantly all the immigrants, illegals or whatever you want to call them. You know, taking all those jobs. So to say that people are taking our jobs, it makes me mad. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah.
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 I
See.
feel like it's a society, but it's also personal too. Because it's like, you know, I get it. You have to abide by it, but to what extreme?
Exactly.
You also have, you know, your own, I guess, mentality or mind that you can think. You can take what's good and what's bad and just run with that. I mean, you don't have to comply or abide by everything.
Exactly.
I feel like.
Man, so you know, I was having this conversation with my little one the other day. Right, and she's not so little anymore. She's about to turn 18.
Sheesh.
So it's one of those things where, like, of course, you go through those stages where you just want to be accepted by everybody, right?
Right.
Especially
Yeah.
like middle school, going into high school. So she started off in middle school at a Christian school. So they read the Bible dang near from, you know, cover to cover. She was able to quote stuff out, so on and so forth.
Really?
When we came over to the public schools, yeah, absolutely. It took a change. It's like, hey, what's going on? And then you start seeing like the different mannerisms and such. It's like, man, you know, what's going on? Because I saw that she had like this. So I don't know what you would end up calling it, but so it's like an artifact, if you will, from a different religion, where it had like the moon, so on and so forth, sitting up on her bed. It's like, you know, wouldn't that be, you know, like a artifact from like the Islamic faith? It's like, yeah, you know, my boyfriend, he is, you know, in that faith. It's like, very well.
Your boyfriend or her boyfriend?
Whoa.
Whoa. Cut that out. Cut that.
Yeah, you know, so she was telling me this. I was like, okay, you know, so how does that work? You know, we're just very open-minded. Okay, does his family know that you guys are dating? It's like, no, he's not allowed to date right now. It's like, so you're okay being, you know, kept a secret, you know, and after they find out that you're a Christian, is that going to be a problem? And then, you know, she said, more than likely, yes. I was like, what do you think is going to happen after, you know, they find out that you're Christian? They're probably either going to tell him that he's not allowed to date a Christian person, or they're going to cut him off, you know, from whatever. You know, going off to college, you have to go about, you know, using your parents' funds, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
You have to claim those things.
Dang.
Or she's gonna have to convert.
Yeah, you know.
Or she's gonna have to convert. You're saying?
Yeah, because if he's the faith, yeah, like he's not definitely not gonna convert.
So that's how they would allow it
Yeah,
if she
yeah,
converts
yeah,
too.
absolutely.
You know,
I went through that. That's what I'm saying. Like it's a lot of.
Oh
you know.
snap!
So, you know,
I did not know any of that.
having that conversation, you know, in the past I had told her, I was like, look, you know, when I was going through college, I went through this phase, not like where I started questioning my faith in the aspect of, you know, I don't know if I believe this, but I believe that anything, you know, worthwhile, you should question, right? Because this is going to impact the rest of your life. I want to make sure that it's not one of those things that I'm just following blindly just because it was passed down to me. You know, I want to make sure that it actually makes sense to me. So I was going around the campus and I was talking to all these people from the different faiths and such, and, you know, trying to see like where everything marries up. Go back and read my text after we end up reading some of theirs. It's like, okay, you know, I don't necessarily believe what it is that they're saying. This is why. We go come back and have another conversation, and then, you know, my faith, you know, it just stuck with me. But I think that every person that is in any specific religion should go about doing that, as opposed to accepting the word of somebody else, you know, telling them this, because
Yeah.
my interpretation of, you know, what it is that I'm reading is going to be different from yours, so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So you have to have those kinds of conversations. It might be tough, but you have to.
And that's why it's so important for us to have that one-on-one relationship. You know, because I can tell Chip, hey, Bryant's a great dude, man. You got to meet him. You got to meet him. But if he's just going based off of my word, he'll never have that real connection of really understanding.
Correct.
Like, Bryant is a good dude. And then when you guys finally meet, he's like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's actually how I explained Jesus to one of my friends in high school. And I'm like, I could be wrong, but I kind of look at Jesus like a friend. Like, I can't really tell you how awesome he is or how good he is if I don't know that for myself.
See, so I guess I would be curious how every other religion goes about praying, right? Because if in Christianity you can go about, venting all of your frustration, your anger, so on and so forth, to your God, do other people end up having that same experience?
No.
See what I mean? So if you look in the Bible, I want to say it was in the Psalms, where David was asking for his enemies to go about being, essentially slaughtered.
Right.
Right?
Kill them all.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the ones with the gimp. Take them out.
Exactly. But he was praying this, and then just out of frustration, anger, so on and so forth. And then in the very next psalm, he comes back and says, Lord, I know that I was tripping. Please forgive me for my thoughts. But
The second track was like, yo, I'm sorry about what I just said in the first track.
Yeah,
I got a little crazy.
exactly.
I got a little carried away.
But just having the ability to go about communicating with your God like that is completely different than having, I want to say it's like a surface level relationship, because surface level relationship isn't really a relationship. Right? So the person that you can go about telling your deepest and darkest secrets to is the person that you probably have the greatest relationship with.
That's beautiful, yeah.
But other people might not have that same situation. So how did they say that they actually have a relationship with their God, or do they have a relationship with their God?
Damn.
Everything else is scripted, I feel like. Look at Catholics, Rosemary, this, that, like, all of these, like, it's just, well, were you dealing with that? Well, here's a little prayer. You say this. It's like you got a handbook of just prayers that it's all written down. It's like, nothing is personal. I feel like everything is just
Exactly.
kind of like on the assembly line.
Exactly.
Just do this. It's like robotic almost.
Exactly.
I feel like that's the beauty about, I feel like, even labeling Christianity, but it's like following the man who is God himself, Jesus Christ. When you surround yourself or when you follow that, you can't go wrong. It's the Bible, that's what it is. It's God's love story for us.
Absolutely.
That's like, the perfect handbook that you can follow. Because a lot of Christianity too, what did they implement? Their own set of rules, so to speak, laws, habits, tradition, that it's not necessarily in there.
Absolutely. Let's see. And then you get into like the things that people would end up going away from the church for, and then the things that people outside of the church end up looking bad at the church about, like the prosperity gospel. Not necessarily saying that it's not a thing, but
to make that the main thing is
exactly,
yeah,
it's taking away from the overall message. So when you try to make that the overall thing, like, hey, if you give me 10% or more, exactly, you will be overly blessed.
And once you hit 15, that's a different blessing. You're gonna get something else. It's a bonus for that one.
Exactly. But then you go about giving the more. It's like, okay, where's my blessing? And you're waiting. So in this book, praying like monks, living like fools, it ends up actually talking about something like that.
Tyler Staton, shout out.
Absolutely. So it ends up talking about that kind of stuff where it's saying, that people end up having an adverse relationship with prayer as a result of the things that they've prayed for in the past that, seemingly went unanswered. So if I'm praying for good health, so on and so forth, and, I'm dying of cancer, and it just doesn't happen. You go through that frustration period, and then you go through the acceptance period or whatever, like the later that it gets. But as I'm praying, continuously for this better health, and it's not happening, I get frustrated to the point where it's like, you know what? I'm just not going to pray anymore, because you have this fear of being let down. But I believe that people that actually have true relationship with God don't necessarily have to worry about being let down, because it's not necessarily a denial. And the fact that we don't know God's will for our lives, tells us that there is, something on the other side. We just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You know? So even if I don't get the health and whatnot that I'm praying for, I'm getting the end result that God had planned for me. And
Wow.
whatever ends up happening to me is probably going to end up being a testimony for somebody else, that might be experiencing the same thing or otherwise. What they needed to go about being able to move on into their next step.
I don't know this man of faith. I mean, obviously he was like pretty well known, but at the end of his life, on his deathbed, they were asking him like, what was like the greatest thing, I guess, that you can, if you have to rewind your life, what would be the best thing that ever happened to you? It's like the best thing that ever happened to me was those unanswered prayers, and everybody was like, what are you talking about? Like, that's what kept me having my relationship with God. Constantly
Ooh.
going back and forth, back and forth.
Ooh.
Absolutely.
Ooh.
Sometimes, those unanswered prayers is not just, it's a character building. It's
Exactly.
motivation, shaping, reshaping, rededicating, all of that. Like, it just comes in play but we tend to see it as like, no, like, I need that answer now.
Exactly.
Damn, bro. I never looked at it like that. Totally. It's like, okay, you get this blessing. Great.
What
You
now?
get unanswered prayers. Also great.
Absolutely. I think that sometimes those unanswered prayers have to be, right? Because you pray for, multi-million dollars right now. And, you being the person that you are right now, like, what would you do with that multi-million? If you're going to be irresponsible with the blessing that, you're asking for, so on, what makes you actually worthy of that thing?
Oh, boy. How many people right now, if they just stop this episode and just listen or not even listen, but give themselves some peace, some time to soak that in, what have you been praying about that it will probably do you more harm than good? Because it's almost just like what we're saying. We've talked about it so many times, like the curse of the lottery. And how many people would ever say like winning the lottery is a curse, except for the people that have won already?
Exactly.
Because they've won and then they freaking mess it all up. Because if our character does not match our calling, we're not ready for it. So there's a reason why we're together here now. Let's say 5 years ago, us three met up at a bar somewhere, and then like our conversations probably wouldn't be similar to what we're having now. But because we've been able to travel our individual paths and eventually get together now, we have the knowledge, the tools, the accessories, whatever we need to have these quality conversations. And that there's a process to it, right? Like when our character is changing.
Yeah. But you said it best. I feel like, even with these lottery winners or whatever, I used to think that, money changes and all of this, but I feel like when you have that ability, just money will just bring exactly who you are. Will bring out forth exactly who you are.
It is.
Exactly.
It is. It's an amplifier.
Yeah, exactly.
Money's just an amplifier. It doesn't change you. It just brings out what is already inside.
Yeah, and you said it. Like it's all about your character. And it's like, what do you allow from life to shape you, the man that you are today? Because I mean, anything and everything bad that happens, there's still something good in it. There's a reason why that happened, or why that had to happen,
That's filthy.
and had to happen to you. But we don't count that as blessings.
Oh.
Man.
Oh, what do we count? What are we not counting as blessings?
Yeah.
We're looking at the job, the promotion, the house, the car, all these like materialistic things that we can be like, yeah, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
But what are some of the things that really is a blessing, but we don't realize it was? I'll be the first one. That injury that messed me up and took me down ended my law enforcement career. Up until now, this is the only time this has ever come out of my mouth where that has actually been a blessing. That moment in time, that injury, me getting taken out, that has been a blessing. Because at the moment, in all those years, I did not see it that way. But I can confidently say today that that is a blessing because I have a great wife, an amazing daughter, good men around me, strong relationships. and at the cost of that injury, I'll take it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's see. I think it was
That's oof.
very similar for me, man. Everybody would say that this is kind of negative, but after I had one of my buddies, kill himself, um, I started taking the relationships that I had a little bit more seriously, right? And so as opposed to being, so disconnected from people after going off or whatever, people get into their own, workflow, so on. I reach out to people more, just to check on them. Like, hey, do you need anything? Type deal.
I'll say I noticed that about you.
Yeah,
I noticed that shift in you. Like you
yeah.
have been.
You have to, right?
Good.
Yeah, it's tough, but nature of the beast.
You just appreciate it more.
Mm-hmm.
We said a couple weeks ago in an episode, how can you appreciate being full if you've never been hungry?
Mm.
How can you appreciate good men in your lives if you've never been kicked in the balls or stabbed in the back by other men?
Exactly.
I see something brewing in this dude's mind right here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it just when you said about your PD, I mean, it's hard to say it, man, but my dad's passing. I feel like it's. I mean, obviously, it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Wrong in a sense to me because obviously, I keep questioning like if I was a good kid to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't have that closure,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll never have that. But at the same time, when we're talking about blessing, dude, like I would have never had this.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Absolutely.
I would have never had this, and I would have never experienced this if he wouldn't have passed.
Absolutely.
So I feel like, maybe his time was, God said, okay, you've labored. And I know my father, man. Like, he's worked his whole life, not only physical, but he was, one of the church leaders that I grew up in. Man, as a kid, I remember all the sacrifices that he did, and it was not easy.
Mm.
I obviously, growing up, I didn't understand that. I mean, I was 13 when we came to the States. To me, it didn't seem much or whatever because it was like just routine, right?
Mm-hmm.
But growing up, and then you see just the little things just showing up, for Wednesday meeting calls and all that, like how much it takes, let alone being there Thursday, and he had to travel to be to that church, and again, like it's not roads like this or anything like that, so it would take you a good amount, just to get to church, prepare everything and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like I said, man, it kicked me right in the nuts when you said that. I'm like,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to accept it and say that it's a blessing because I have to be okay with the fact that he's gone, and I don't think I'm ready.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do know that,
A shift in perspective, almost.
yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely.
but I know that if it wouldn't have happened, none of this would have been possible.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have accepted it, and it wouldn't have impacted me the way it did.
Mm.
So
That's heavy, bro.
Yeah. Definitely get that.
I appreciate you sharing that, though, man. That's even in that gravity of pain, to find some kind of light or benefit, or even, looking for that. How could this be a blessing? How was this? How can I see this as something done for me and not to me?
what Brian said, it's the perspective.
It is. It is.
Absolutely. Let's see. And I think that we do have a responsibility to ourselves to go about going through that grieving process, right? Because even biblically, when somebody would pass, it would be like the whole town
Yeah.
would be wearing like sackcloths and throwing dirt on their heads and whatnot, like grieving for this person, like wailing in the middle of the street, to the person that's just coming into the city, like, what are these people doing?
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a sign of respect for the individual, cherishing the things that they were able to provide or whatever it was that they did for you in their lifetime. And I think it's one of those things they were doing things that maybe you weren't conscious of until after they were gone. You miss, waking up in the morning to, a stack of pancakes or whatever. and you just thought that that was normal up until you don't have that thing anymore. It's like, oh man, they were taking a lot of time to go about doing this. You start doing it, and it's like, this takes a lot of effort. I had to wake up early to be able to do these things now, and now you see what the person was doing for you on a consistent basis. It's like, man, that person really loved me, and so on.
Yeah, this is something that our kids are gonna have to listen to and watch,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll realize like what it took to be here, because you know, I was just having this conversation with my mother-in-law the other day. She was saying something along the lines. She's like, I don't know how your mom has done it through all these years, because my mom works in downtown Chicago, and she's been commuting ever since I knew, like even before we moved out to the burbs. She always commuted, and that process of getting up early to get to the train. So she like leaves at 6 a.m., doesn't get home till maybe 6 or 7 p.m. And then she cooks and cleans and does all these things. And just like you said, you just kind of think it's a norm until it's your turn to be the parent, and it's your turn to have that responsibility, and you're like, holy crap, this is a lot. And yet, you know, my mom never complains. She never complained, not once.
Yeah.
And she showed up day in and day out, and man, like, I know you're listening to this right now, Ma, so try to dry your tears if you can. But you don't appreciate that until you become a parent, or until you have that responsibility over somebody else's life. And you're like, the sacrifices you need to make. And you don't even have to be a parent necessarily, but when you have that responsibility over someone or something else, you're like, man, this takes a lot of work. This takes a lot of work.
Exactly. And I think that that's just indicative of the relationship that we end up having with God, right? Because a relationship in general takes a lot of work, So the work that you go about putting into, building up a trust or a faith or whatever it is with whatever it is that you're doing, it's going to require some effort on your part, right? You can't just fall into a situation and say, the other person's going to take care of it.
Yeah.
It's a two-way street. So,
Which is, I think, what most men in our friendships do, where it's like, if like we're friends, I'm just gonna rely on Brian to hit me up, or I'll rely on Chip hitting me up, if he needs something, right? And that's kind of the mentality we take into our relationships with other men, and especially like a brotherhood. It's so rare to have another man, let alone a group of men, thinking about you and praying for you genuinely and reaching out to you to see how you're doing without expecting anything in return.
exactly.
I think that's still, I'm getting used to it now, but it's still somewhat new to me, that when I get that and I receive it, it's like,
Yeah.
what you want, Chip?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's got to be something.
There's got to be something, right?
When's the ask?
When's the ask? Right. It's like, okay. What you need, bro? What you need?
Exactly.
But that's just a reality, because I think we're conditioned that way to look at, if someone reaches out to me or if someone's checking up on me, they must need something.
Yeah.
So then when we have these genuine connections like this in the group of guys that we got, it's a breath of fresh air.
But you said it, because it's like you pretty much all your life, everybody that came in, they came in
To take.
for a reason.
Yeah. Exactly.
They didn't come in for, a lifetime or, a specific season. They just came for the reason. And it's like, okay, I can benefit. And it's unfortunate, but that's how most men think. That's why we gotta. When do we make that transition from boys to men?
Ooh.
Exactly.
When you can sing End of the Road. That's when you can.
Man.
Well, I think that's why it's hard for men to have brotherhood, genuine brotherhood.
It's hard to find.
It's hard. Yes.
It's hard to find.
It's hard to
And
find.
when you find, it's hard for you to open up, because you'd be like, is this gonna be another
One of
my
those.
language shit show?
Yeah.
So am I gonna go through the same thing again? Is he gonna use me again?
Exactly.
Like, is he gonna think that he's gonna pull a fast one, even though, like, brother, I've been eating this up all my life. Like, you think you're gonna come in and try to take advantage?
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I'm gonna let you think that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it's hard. Like, I mean, you touched on it when I first was introduced to this, and I'm like, like, nah, this can't be real. I'm like, I'm dreaming. I'm like, this is not, because you're just not used to it.
Exactly.
So how can you accept something that is too good?
Exactly.
You think it's fake.
Yeah.
Until, like, it actually becomes part of you and starts to actually draw who you are, and it's like, man, this is what I actually depend on now.
Mm.
Let's see.
So
So I guess what does it take for you guys to open up in a relationship?
Ooh.
So like after being hurt so many times with trusting people and having your trust taken advantage of. Yeah.
That's
What events have to occur for you to go about saying, you know what, maybe I can trust this person with more?
You know what? Initially, I didn't have an answer, but now, like, as I feel like it's coming to me, I have this theory that when someone goes through darkness and goes through a pain, not like I stubbed my toe pain, but like I went to the dark, like depressed, like excuse my language, but things got fucked up in life.
Yeah.
When someone's been through that, I feel like I have a relatability with them, even without them saying anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's the weirdest thing.
Yep.
And I can't put it necessarily to words. That might be the best way to describe it for me. And I've had that with you guys. Every guy in here, if they're a part of Redwood, I literally have that. I've had that sense with them, where I'm like, this guy's been through something, and he doesn't have to tell me. Hopefully he will one day, but I have like this sense of like this guy's been through something. Like when you and I first got on the security team, Brian, I was like, this dude's been through something, and then like within a couple minutes. That same day, I think we worked our first shift together. Like we were already talking. Like I'm like, yo, I can mess with this dude. Like this dude's legit. He's about it. Same thing with Chip. I first met this dude on a Zoom call. Zoom.
Yeah.
He hops on, and again, this is online. He hops on, and I see his face pop up, and just without even saying a word, I'm like, there's something about this dude. I relate with him, and then it's this thing where I feel like if you've been through that darkness and you've touched that darkness, you don't come out of that the same, and you're better able to see it from other people who have also been through that darkness. And for me, it's almost like an immediate attraction where we may not have been PD together or got injured together, but we've been into that same depth of darkness that you don't come out of the same.
yeah.
So when you see it in somebody else and you recognize it, it's like, oh, dude, I get this dude. So for me, that's how I kind of
Shared hardships and all that good stuff.
share. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
For me, I feel like everybody's got a story to tell, right? And it's their version of the story because that's who they are.
Ooh.
But for me, it's like right away I tend to like pick up. It's like, okay, this dude is like full of himself, talks only about himself, so he's not gonna include anybody else besides himself.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's also like a shut off, like right away.
Yeah.
But to what Angelo was saying, like after that first Zoom call, my wife had woken up and she was like, so how did it go? What's your take on it? I'm like, I don't know how to feel right now because, like I said, it feels good. It feels weird because I'm like, I've never experienced anything like this in my life. But and I was like, I actually do find a comfort in this dude that, like, right away, like, we just instantly clicked. And she's like, let me guess, he's a cop or he was a cop. And I'm like, fuck. Yeah. So I don't know
No.
what it was that it's just like, it was that
Yeah.
instant. I'm like, dude, look, like he said, it was just, and I'm not saying like I didn't have it with everybody else, but it was just something that right away draw me to this person that I was like, okay, I can be myself around that person. I don't have to shy away, or I don't have to say a lot, because there's certain things that he gets, that he understands.
Absolutely.
But I feel like we also have to be open about, because maybe some people or some men, their traction is a little bit, slower.
Absolutely.
So it's like, it's a beautiful thing to see. I'm not going to give his name, but, it's like, we both started seeing the same dude, and I'm like, damn, like, this dude is a lion. Like, I'm like, straight up.
Absolutely.
So,
I think
but
that's the mask.
exactly. It just took a
Yeah.
little bit for them to like actually open up to be like, okay, well, these dudes are, I have that relatability with them, so I don't have to have this mask on anymore. I can take it off and be myself.
No, that's nasty. Yeah.
How about you though? What's your filter? What's your system look like?
Shared hardship, man. And then, I really have to listen to somebody's story, and if I can see like a genuine emotion in it,
Yeah.
um, if if you can open up to me and be vulnerable, then I'm okay with you. But the moment that you start like trying to you can read people,
Yeah.
just via their actions and such. The moment that you start, putting up that wall and like trying to protect yourself from, just judgment in general. Like the person that's already been through things and such, there's no need to be worried about judgment. The judgment's already occurred.
Yep. Exactly.
But
Exactly.
when you have to go about throwing up that wall because you have to worry about what somebody else is going to think about you, it's like you're not my kind of person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you put up a wall, that means I have to take the time to scale that thing.
Exactly.
And it's like, do I have the energy? Do I have the bandwidth to do it?
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
And realistically, at this season of my life, at this point in my life, I have such strong relationships with a ton of you guys already that if someone is going to is like trying to introduce himself into my circle or trying to get in, it's really, really hard. And I'm not saying that from an egotistical standpoint, but because now I have to get past that wall with you. I have to take time to know you, take time to, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I would much rather call Brian, Chip, David, or Alfredo and like catch up with them or sharpen whatever, rather than try to get to play the whole. So what do you do? What do you? And it's like, and I'm not trying to sound rude either, but it's I don't have that a lot of that bandwidth right now, so I don't entertain. I try to seek out bullshit faster.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's the thing. So I guess it was kind of a leading question because, like, for me personally, it was one of those things where I ended up having to be able to observe all that stuff, within myself to be able to seek a better relationship with God.
Yes.
Right. So
Oh, that's good.
what would it take for me to go about being able to have a better relationship with God? So you look at the interaction that you're having right now, and then how it could be better. If you don't pray, if you don't just have like the normal conversation, because whether you like to admit it or not, if you are an atheist, you still end up praying. In those moments where it's like, oh,
Gun to your head.
exactly.
Oh God, save me.
Exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
which God are you praying to? But you still prayed.
All of them.
Exactly. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
You go through those like extreme lows, and then people that don't even have like a true faith. It's like, God, if you're listening, please help.
What do people say too? Like, if something works out in their favor, oh, thank God.
Exactly.
It's like,
You
do acknowledge it.
Exactly. And then you have an atheist that will use the name of Jesus in their everyday speech. That it's not by chance. These things happen. So is it that you want to build up a relationship, or you just don't know how? All these things that are falling into place, but you just choose not to. So what kind of walls do I have up that I need to go about tearing down to have a better relationship, with my God?
Ooh.
So up until you can go about evaluating those kind of things, your relationship with God is going to be somewhat surface level, because you're not allowing him, to come into your house. You're trying to protect all these, things that you see as downfalls, or I'm not ready to expose that yet. Even though God knows everything that you do, you try to hide all the things that you think would put a blemish, in God's history book for your life, even though he already sees everything that you've done. I need to protect this, because if anybody else saw this, they would think otherwise of me.
Well, the Bible's very clear, right? That's what they remain in darkness, because they're afraid that the light will expose
Yeah.
Ooh.
But at the same time, I feel like God is the only one that is equipped with all the tools to take down any type of wall. Because I might have a steel wall, and he has the torch, to burn that thing down.
Hey.
I might have a brick wall.
He's got the
that
C. He's got the
sledgehammer.
C4. He's
You know
got
what
the
I'm saying?
C4 for it
So,
all, baby.
Hey,
but that's the thing, like as men, like as was Brian was saying, like I mean, is this genuineness about a person that you can sense it? So it's like if you can't reciprocate that, maybe I don't have the sledgehammer to take down you. Maybe I only have a torch, and that's all I know.
Exactly.
Maybe I could relate with that, but I can't relate with. So it's like I feel like it's our own individual, I guess, steps that we have to take or approach to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go in this open-minded, and whatever happens, happens. And I feel like that's gonna have the best outcome possible because when you go with that mentality, well, let me see what this dude is all about. Well, maybe he's coming in with the same thing, and it's like it's clashing that you don't get the best result.
That's really good. I mean, even sometimes, man, I find myself testing people. I did this a lot when I was in business, and I would play this young, dumb entrepreneur role. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, like, I'm like acting green as hell, like acting like I don't know what I'm doing, or not like ignorant, but maybe a little bit of ignorance. But I just put on this facade, and I would see if people would judge me
yeah. Or try to take advantage.
or take advantage of it. Exactly. This whole time, I want to see if people take the bait, and once they start to take the bait, and I could see like, oh, this guy's trying to bring me into deep waters. I'm like, okay, and I cut it off. And then later on, they find out like what I've done and things that I've accomplished, and then they try to come back and backpedal and try to have reopen up that relationship. And in my mind, I'm like, I've already shut you out because I saw your true colors before, and I may be wrong, may be right, but it's part of my filtration system. Like, and then can you handle a deep conversation? Let's go deep. Like me and this dude, our first that first time we started talking about deep stuff already.
Absolutely.
This dude got me on the book, The Prodigal God, and I was like, yo, that book is powerful. And I'll never forget that, and it was one of our first conversations, and it really made an imprint in me. Like, yeah, Brian's legit. Like, he can hang. Like, this is the dude that I want around in my life, and that's part of that filtration system. How do we test? Like you dude, Chip, you opened up fairly quickly. I think the same call you opened up, and I was like, I knew it. I'm like, there's something's brewing in this guy, and then our conversation, we just clicked.
Well, I mean, because again, it's reciprocated. I don't like. I mean, it's natural. I feel like nobody's forcing to like. Well, I'm like this. No, like you don't have to say anything because I already see who you are, and you see who I am because it's like I don't see those walls up. You don't gotta climb mine. I don't gotta climb yours. And it's like, and even if it is, it's a transparent wall because I'm sure everybody's got their walls, 100%.
Always,
Exactly.
yeah.
But at least it's like I can see right through it. It's like, and I feel like that's the beauty about it. Like I told you, we had this conversation before. I would have never, I mean, I wouldn't say because I don't want to like say it like ignorantly, but, like when I say this, but it's like I almost laughed at people that like men that need like men console or something like that.
Oh,
I'm
dude, me
like,
too, bro.
I'm like,
Trust me.
what
Trust
is
me.
that? Like, I mean, you're not a man, like.
Yeah.
You're weak.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But then I'm like, oh dear Lord, like what was I missing? Had I had this, but then again, it also comes into the season of life. How would I had it earlier? Maybe I would have screwed it up because I wouldn't know how to appreciate it, how to take care of it, how to season it, how to water it, how to tend to it. I would have just like minded my own business and be like, whatever happens, happens.
Absolutely.
But I feel like, we always say God's timing is perfect. So I feel like it did come in at the right time.
Exactly.
Yes.
It came at a time when I feel like not only was I ready for it to receive what it was about to give me, but it also had to take my walls down.
Absolutely.
It's a beautiful thing, man, when you find it.
It is.
When you find that, like, these type of relationships. Because just like you said, we all have this idea of a relationship, with other men. It sounds weak, and that's kind of part of what the media tries to push is do your own thing, be you. You don't need any other, like, this form of masculinity where I don't need anybody else, type of thing. And sometimes when you walk through that darkness, and then you come out of it, like, you kind of, that mentality gets ingrained even more, because I got myself out of this darkness. I got myself out of this.
But how?
Right.
You know.
It was harder, for God to pull me out of it when I was by myself,
Yeah, exactly.
because I felt like I was always going tick for tack with God. That God is like, nah, bro. He's like nudging me, go this way. And I'm like, nah, I think I'm gonna go that way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then it's like you have men in your life that it's like, bro, constantly like,
Exactly.
and I'm like, huh, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that's where I'm supposed to go. And it's a beautiful thing, man, when you see like the whole picture come in and play. Because like I said, I see it from my own angle, from my own eyes, or through my own eyes, and I only see a specific side of the picture. Then Angelo sees it from the top left corner. Brian sees the right top corner. Alfredo bottom. And it's like all of a sudden when you start talking with them, it's like you get the whole picture.
Exactly.
And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was just this.
Exactly.
And then it's like, no, but I thought it was just this. And then it's like, that's the beauty about brotherhood, man. Like, and that most people, it's sad to say that they'll never experience it.
Yeah.
I could have been one of them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's not that they can't, right? It's just because they choose not to. We choose not to. We think, just doing life like this is as good as it's going to get. And that's kind of where we were talking about earlier with personal development. You can read all the books, you can, attend all the seminars, and, your personal development is getting better and better and better. And then you're going to hit a ceiling, and then you're basically going to question, now what? And I can say that because that's what I did. Like, I did the seminars, I did the courses, I read the books, and, it really helped when I was in that dark time. But then it started getting to a place where I'm like, is this it?
Yeah.
Like, is this the whole meaning of life, is to try to make money and kind of live on your own lonely island, and that's it? Like, I'm like, I refuse to believe that's it. And God humbled me
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
See, but I think that's part of the progression of life, man. Because you think about it, King Solomon went through the same thing. Where he was one of the richest people in the Bible.
Yeah.
Wisdom wise, monetarily, had several wives, concubines, so on and so forth, and then he started questioning everything. It's like it is like this crown that I wear. It's toil. What is this for? So on, and just everything in life. To where he eventually fell away from God, and then I believe that he started following a different religion.
Yeah.
Right.
And so on. But he started questioning all that stuff. Like, what am I doing all this for? So up until, I believe, you go about establishing a purpose, and the purpose, it has to be something that's bigger than you, right? Where you're impacting somebody else's life. So even just becoming a mentor for somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
The person that doesn't have that style of relationship is going to do numbers in your own life. And now you're giving yourself the purpose to go about helping other people and, driving them toward, having a purpose in theirs. So we have to find a purpose. And if that purpose just ends up being, let me be a good friend. That's all you need.
That one of my mentors taught me this thing called the relationship triangle. And he says, every man needs 3 people in his life. And he's a Christian, so like he obviously related to the Bible. You need a Paul, you need a Timothy, and you need a Barnabas. You need a Paul because you need someone who's mentoring you, someone who's pouring into you. You need a Timothy because you need to pour into somebody else. You need a mentee to give. And you need a Barnabas because you need a friend. You need someone who's like with you, riding it out. And I'm like, dude, how true is that? Because if you just say you take out one of those things and, you have someone you're mentoring and then you have someone you're doing life with, but you're not getting poured into, eventually your cup's going to go empty. And then let's say you take out someone you're mentoring, you're not pouring into or giving into anybody else. Your cup is going to be like, you can't hold anymore because you've kind of reached your limitation.
Absolutely.
And if you have no friend, you're being poured into, you're giving, and then you're going to be like, well, is this it? Is anybody else kind of going through what I'm going through? You feel alone. You're isolated.
But that's why I feel like you also need a Peter.
Exactly.
Peter was just an emotional wreck. Like we talked about it a lot. Like we jump out of the airplane and be like, okay, well, we didn't take a parachute. Now what? So sometimes you need that dude that just let's just go with it, and whatever happens, happens. I feel like Peter was that risk taker. Like very unpredictable in that sense. Like he was very in tune with his, I guess, like his anger and anxiety or whatever he was dealing with at the time.
Maybe we'll add that in. You need a Peter. So you need a box of friends, not a tribe. You need a box.
Well, somebody that, I guess, like, keeps you on your toes, motivates you. Like we were just talking about it in the beginning. I know what I need. I keep making excuses for it.
Let's see. So the person that's going to push you to go about doing better.
Yeah. I think that Peter and Barnabas is really close because I think that's really, I mean, the friends that I have, like you guys, like you all push me in different ways.
I feel like Barnabas was a little bit more level-headed. Let's just put
Was
it
it?
that way? Yeah. It was more like, okay, kind of like the friend that you need. Peter was like the friend that, okay, shit's about to go down. Like, Peter, let's go.
Peter, Alfredo, you know what I mean? Everyone needs Alfredo sauce in their life. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's Fredo, man. Like you obviously he's not here right now, but he's one of those ride or die guys.
Yeah.
And he brought this to my attention. He was like, "You need a 2 a.m. friend." I was like, "What's a 2 a.m. friend?" He's like, the friend that you call at 2 a.m. and they're there, whatever you need. You need help, you need help burying a body. All right, I'm on the way.
Which car you need?
Yeah, exactly. You need those type of relationships where you can call men in the drop of a dime and they're there for you.
Well, I told you it happened to me when I was going through a hard time, and they're like, "Well, I'm your friend, dude. You can count on me, but call me until like 10 o'clock."
Exactly.
And I'm like,
that's kind of crazy, man.
I'm like, how can you say that? Like, you need to see that I'm like, dragging my feet through this world right now in this stage of my life, and it's like, call me.
Exactly.
I'm here for you. 10 o'clock though. I'm out.
10:05. I'm not picking up.
Appreciate you, man. Well, it's 9:59, so
yeah, exactly. Like you got office hours for being a friend. Like it's interesting. I could understand drawing like boundaries, right? Because you got family, you got all, I get that.
100%.
But it's almost like, man, if someone's really, if I knew any of you guys were going through something, I would genuinely say, call me at any time. I could be busy, I could be tired.
Yeah.
Because I know you guys are dealing with something. Dude, hit me up. Like
I always tell everybody, like, yeah, life gets crazy, but call me 2 times in a row. If you call me the second time, I know I gotta drop everything, and I'm like, I know, like, you need something in the sense, like, not that you need something that can wait. Obviously,
it's an emergency.
Exactly. Like if you call me the second time, like you need something like right then and right there and now.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
But I feel like it's also we got to create that. Most men, it's like I said, I'm a friend between 9 and 3 or 9 and 5. But after that, and which again, I get it. Like you touched on it. You got your own life, family that you gotta respect, or you're no matter what, you're not gonna go above that. Which that's also good. I mean, at least I know that between 9 and 5, I got you to count on.
Exactly.
And after that, like, I got people that I can call from 5 to 2 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah, and it just goes to like this, triangle or square, however you guys want to take it or look at it. It goes to show the different relationships you need into your life. You need to also be learning and growing and being poured into, being fed. Then you also need to feed, and then you also need a brotherhood to like, yo, life is crazy right now. What's going on with you? And it just kind of goes to all the different facets and identities we see as men. The warrior, the king, the lover, and the friend. And I think I'm really happy that we're able to talk about this today, because there's so many men that are craving, and they're yearning, seeking relationship, and a group of guys with a group of guys.
Absolutely.
But it's, are you even ready for that? Because I think one of the things is, when you're friends with me, at least if you're friends with me, they also have to understand, like, I will call them out when they need to be called out. When they need, I don't want. I'd rather tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. I don't want to waste time. Kind of like, if you need to vent, you need to vent. That's cool, but I'm very like solution focused. Like, what's next? What should we do next? You know. Also be prepared. Like, you will be challenged by some of these relationships.
Yeah.
And that's why also, like, when strategically I have you men in my life when I need something, very beginning of today, when I knew I had to go run, I really wanted to go run, but I also knew my running is not going to be the same as what I need to be doing. My running is like walk/jog. And I'm like, oh, yeah, exactly. I'm
The
like,
walking part. Jogging.
the walking part, yeah. I was like, man, like, I gotta call Bryant, but I don't want to call Bryant, but I know I should, because if I do, this dude's really gonna push me. And I said earlier, I'm like, yeah, dude, let's go run tomorrow, man, or let's go jog or whatever. I'm just gonna go like kind of easy walking pace. And of course, the dude's texting. He's like, yeah, for sure. Yeah, no problem, man, no problem. We get there. He's like, all right, man, let's warm up in a mile. I was like, what? What in the willy nilly? Did you not read my text, bro? Like, you said, yeah. But you need these men that will challenge you and pull you.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's not just one friend. When you have, I think, one friend and a couple, like, yeah, sure, these are great friendships. But then once you really like have more, those friendships become like a council. And we've said it before. What is a king without a council?
Yeah.